Howdy, folks. So today we're going to go over a few different learning targets. So the military competition that led to the arms and space race, and we're going to continue talking about the policy of containment throughout the world. So we've got a few great little astronauts here hanging out because the race is first to space, and then we moved goalposts to the moon. So as communism is spreading, as we are moving on into the Cold War, we are not directly fighting with the Soviet Union, but instead we are having what's called proxy wars. So we have war through a proxy. We are supporting capitalist nations, not necessarily democracies. In the case of Korea, it is in fact a dictatorship, and in Vietnam, it also is a dictatorship. But we are supporting these proxies, and the Soviets are supporting their proxies. So the Soviet Union is helping out Korea to a certain extent, and China is mostly supporting North Korea as they are first giving them supplies, and then China eventually helps the North Koreans with direct reinforcements in the form of troops. So all of these pictures right here are pictures from the Korean War. These are kind of refugees. At the bottom right, the first U.S. jet right here on the left, and the port of Incheon, where we have a amphibious, meaning going from water to land, landing. And of course, got to have a tank picture in here. Love the tanks. Now, Korean War. Korea starts divided at the very end of World War II. The North is communist, supported by the Chinese Communist Party, and the Soviet Union. The South is capitalist. They're supported by the UN, aka the US and its allies. Right? So we kind of call this the Forgotten War, as it is kind of outshone by both Vietnam and by World War II. It comes just 5 years after the end of World War II. It is a major war. It is never actually declared a war. It is called it's called a police action by the UN and then later by various presidents. So the reason that we get involved in North Korea is the fear of communism spreading. The North invades the South, and the Americans, do not want communism to spread. So the UN, mostly U.S. troops, uh, send send armed forces to go and defend South Vietnam. It's a little video for you to watch. I highly recommend you do watch it. We're not going to watch it in a recording, though. That would be a little silly. Now, Eisenhower is elected in 52 he is elected specifically to bring an end to the Korean War. Eisenhower is a former general in World War II. He is the guy who helped organize Overlord, aka the invasion of France, which brings an end to Nazi occupied France. And he is one of the most famous victorious American generals. He's elected president, and he spends a lot of time and effort trying to stop communism from spreading in the Middle East, where he is mostly successful, and Western Europe, where he is entirely successful in this doctrine, right? Policy, his what he wants to do, named for him, the Eisenhower Doctrine. Okay, so Cuban Missile Crisis. We come very, 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 very close to the end of the war, or the end of the world. We come to the brink, the very edge of nuclear war. So at this point in time, in the 1960s, we have a situation where no matter what happens, both sides have enough nuclear weapons and enough what's called second strike capability, aka if a first strike hits us, we still can launch a nuclear weapons attack on whoever attacked us and destroy them. So no matter what happens, if you are the attacker or if you are being attacked, both countries will be absolutely destroyed by nuclear fire. Right? That's mutually assured destruction. MAD. It's MAD. It's mad. Mutually assured destruction. Everyone dies no matter what. Now, the Cuban Missile Crisis happens after America moves nukes to Italy and Turkey, which are very, 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 very close to the Soviet Union. The Soviets take a look at those missiles that are right next to their border, and they start moving missiles to Cuba, which, as you may know, is very, very close to the US. So Kennedy, president at the time, sends the Navy to stop anything from coming to Cuba. So like this nice little cartoon, Uncle Sam with red eyes is like, no, 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 no. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. We are not going to let this situation, right? Nuclear missiles on Cuba, we are not going to let this situation happen because we do not want to look like this. We do not want to be living in fear. So the Cuban Missile Crisis is the closest that we have ever come to the end of the world. Well, I don't know. There might be like one or two other situations, but basically it is really a face down between Kennedy and the premier of the Soviet Union. I think it's Gorbachev, but whatever, it's not important, right? They are staring each other down, and eventually both of them kind of back away. Both of them decide they're going to back down, but this tension, neither side really forgets. And so both sides decide to ramp up spending on the military, decide to ramp up spending on the nuclear bomb. The hydrogen bomb is the new type of bomb. It's much, much, much more powerful than a nuclear bomb, but regardless, it still does the same radiation, still wildly powerful, still kills a lot of people at one time. Okay. Once again, you can watch this on your own. We're not going to watch it on a recording. Now, one of the reasons that the space race comes into being is because if you can launch a rocket into space, it is much faster for you to actually get nukes into the other country, because what travels faster than a train? A plane. What travels faster than a plane? A rocket. Right? So if you can get a rocket into space, all of a sudden you can deliver a nuke to another city very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. So that's why we start trying to get to space. Now, the Soviet Union is the first to get into space. They launch a satellite called Sputnik. It terrifies the US. The US responds with a new education program, which you may recognize science, technology, engineering, and math as a few initials that you're familiar with, right? That comes from wanting to win the space race. The Soviet Union puts the first man into space. I think they put like a dog and then a chimp and then a man. Regardless, not super important. The Soviets get to space first, and then the US puts a man on the moon, right? So with Apollo 11, we get Neil Armstrong, we get Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin up on the moon, and we say, hey, we won the space race. There's this great speech by Kennedy where he announces the space race. Says, we do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. We go to the moon in this decade. It's a great speech. But right, Kennedy is announcing, hey, we're going to get real serious about technology. We're going to get real serious about science because we do not want to fall behind and give the Soviet Union an edge on nuclear weaponry, on war. So, one of the key things to understand in U.S. policy towards Latin America, especially at this time, is if there is any attempt to redistribute land, regardless of whether a ruler has been democratically elected or not, the U.S. eyes kind of go red like that one cartoon again, and we get very, very nasty towards the people of that country. So both Brazil and Argentina have, and Chile, of course, very famously, have different socialists or communists elected into power at this time. The U.S. then leads coups or supports military dictatorships in all three countries at the time. Brazil and Argentina are very famous for their juntas. Augusto Pinochet is the military dictator of Chile. He is afterwards prosecuted for crimes. He is very famous for taking people on what's called helicopter rides, where he takes them in a helicopter, or his people take them in a helicopter and drop them in the Pacific Ocean. Right? Very, very nasty people. And there's a variety of different torture techniques that Argentinians use that even the CIA hear about them using these techniques, and they're like, oh, yeah, that seems pretty bad. You shouldn't do that, even if they are communist. Right? So when the CIA is saying that's bad, it's really, really pretty ugly. But the U.S. does all sorts of support for all of these various people who do all of these various bad things because they are so afraid of communism. And this little chart kind of sums it up. But the U.S. is really doing all sorts of black ops everywhere that you can think of in order to fight communism. Even if these people aren't connected to the Soviet Union, the fear is that, oh, well, they might be connected to the Soviets, even though the Soviets aren't really doing a whole lot in this area. All right, that's all for now. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of U.S. History. Have a good one.